Welcome to another episode of Narratives in Black. I'm your host, Amanda Shea, and today we're sitting down with a trailblazer whose voice echoes from pulpits to print columns, classrooms to community centers. She's a theologian, cultural critic, syndicated columnist, an award-winning speaker whose work challenges the ways religion intersects with race, gender, and sexuality. She's the co-host of the GBH podcast, All Revved Up, a visiting scholar at Boston University's School of Theology, and a powerful voice for justice across generations. She's been honored by organizations like GLAAD, featured in O, the Oprah magazine, and her words have moved audiences from the United Nations to bay windows. Born in Brooklyn and rooted in Boston, she's lived a life of resistance and radical love. Please welcome to the show, Rev. Dr. Irene Monroe. Welcome to Narratives in Black.
Thank you for having me. I'm just honored to be here.
We're honored to have you. When we were thinking about season 2, we were like, if we do not have Rev Irene, we're slacking. So we immediately was like, we have to get you on. And like, shout outs to Olivia as well for making sure that we got you, because we wanted to make sure your schedule was clear and we got you in for July. So thank you so much for being here.
Again, I'm just absolutely honored, really.
I want to jump right into our conversation. Can you take us back to your early years in Brooklyn? Because you're not from Boston.
That's right.
Which is ironic to me, because I feel like everything that you have done here is just, it's already cemented your legacy. So I thought you were from here, but then last night I heard almost like your whole origin story in our workshop, which I do want to touch on today, which is an incredulous story, first and foremost. Your resiliency, your resistance, and even just like your career and how that's all kind of molded into what it is today. What was your upbringing like in Brooklyn?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I do think of myself as a native daughter of Brooklyn, but where I'm born, I have no idea. But certainly my formative years were certainly spent in Brooklyn. But I'm a child of the New York Foundling Hospital. I was a ward of New York State, and the reason why was because I was abandoned in a trash can in Fort Greene Park on July 11th, 1955. And so they estimated, so let me back up a little bit. So I get the name Irene Monroe because the head nun of the New York Foundling Hospital was Sister Irene, who was a Marilyn Monroe fan. So, you know, so that's my name.
So a nun
That's right.
was a really big fan of
right.
Marilyn Monroe.
Right, and we can queer that. Because you see, you do wonder, okay?
Okay, just a tad, just a tad.
We can queer that, can we not?
We can.
So I think that when I told Sister Irene, you know, finally, that I'm a lesbian, she didn't seem surprised. I think she knows why. I think she understood, okay?
Wow.
And give you your blessing.
That is
Yeah.
such a phenomenal fact. And
Yeah.
the fact that it's Reverend Irene Marilyn Monroe, but you dropped the Marilyn.
I dropped the Marilyn. Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that is just absurd. And the whole, like, it's just an absurdity in and of itself. And part of that has to do with, again, this woman was a sex siren and objectified, and in many ways erased. And so one of the things that I felt that I didn't need to carry that name, particularly since I do honor the fact that Sister Irene gives me her name.
Right.
And I go by the name Rev Irene. I always tell people, call me Rev Irene. But the fact is that even when I look at this woman's life, and she was a sex siren in the 1950s. Here, this is before any of you folks were born, but nonetheless, here, this is part of my historical memory here. But the point about it is that when you look at women then, and even now, I need to say, the sexualization of them, the objectification of them, and which encompasses an erasure. So I need not to carry that name. And particularly as I got older and learned more about this woman, it would that's not her name. That name was given to her name.
It was.
Because her name was Norma Jean.
Right.
So I felt like I need not to perpetuate an image that she didn't even agree with.
Wow, you said, first of all, we were talking about this yesterday at the workshop.
And say more about, I want folks to know, because I feel like I'm in I don't feel. I am in a master class, a master storytelling
You're so
class.
sweet.
No, I'm not being sweet. You know, with Amanda Shea at the Pride House. And I need you to say a tad about that. There are so many classes I have time to take. Okay, really, storytelling, and many, and the reason why I signed up for that class is because of you. Now, there are master classes you can do online. There are master classes at education centers or whatever, but you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see you most mornings on WBZ doing the commercial. And so when I saw this, I read this, and I was looking for a price, and I read this. I said, oh, wait a minute. But it didn't matter what price it was. I was coming because you.
Thank you.
Because of you.
I'm so happy that you're there. The Pride Center in Hyde Park, I remember when it was coming to fruition before it even opened. And I think me and Amir looked at each other and was like, this is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
You know, just having a senior center for folks, because that is a need, right? Like having housing and making sure that folks are stable, especially our elders in our community, but then to have it like interchanged into a museum at the same time.
I know.
Like walking into the Pride Center, the first exhibit that you see is always breathtaking. And they change it out, I think every 2 months, if not 3 months. But then going down into the community room where they have their dinners and their meetings and the podium is there, and seeing the portraits of Pride, and they're huge.
I
you know, it's almost
yeah.
like ceiling to floor, low key.
Yeah.
It was just breathtaking. And Amir and I, when Amir had installed the exhibit for Craig Bailey, and his beautiful work and his legacy.
Yeah.
Craig is just phenomenal anyways. Like getting a hug from him just feels like opening up a present on Christmas morning.
It does.
Like it literally feels like that. It's so welcoming and it's so exciting. So to be in that space, you know, and then the exhibit ending after we had a dinner and a celebration of Craig and Amir, which was absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to also Jean Dolan at the space.
Yeah.
We were like, well, what else can we do here? And to bring the workshops in was just a phenomenal idea, and I can't even take credit for that. That was really Amir spearheading that, along with Isabel, who's also on the team at the Pride Center. And I've just been grateful to be able to do it. I was a little apprehensive because I'm like, what does it look like for our elders to write their own stories? Because we are the authors of our own narratives, right? Narratives in Black. But I was a little apprehensive because I'm like, I don't want to feel like I'm pushing them to recall or remember things that they might not want to remember. But what I've found, especially after doing the first 2, last night was our second one, and we have 5 more to go, everyone is so open and vulnerable and willing to share, you know, and that's one thing that I enjoy about it. And then also like just the emotion in the room. We've had people even last class be able to emote and get things off, but then even last night having a breakthrough with someone who had just joined, you know, and watching her emote from hearing someone else's story, but then her emoting through her own story, that to me is healing. Yeah. And it feels like, without sounding like corny, it sounds like group therapy while also using art. Right. You know, you feel that safety. And you opening up about your story last night was just really profound, because as much as we've been in spaces with each other, I never knew that you were an orphan. I never knew that you grew up in foster homes. I just didn't even, the ways in which that I see you and how you present, I would have never guessed that that was your coming into this world. And the way that you tell the story too, which I would love for you to tell our audience here. I know it's a little repetitive because you just told us last night, but it's simply remarkable. No, I'm so serious. It really is. And even the ways in which that you're introspective about it and how you give grace to your birth mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you. I think this is why I think, and I'm not throwing this back at you, but I just want to come round circle on this. This is why storytelling in your class is very important, because what you're gathering is a senior citizen group here. Many of us, you know, myself in particular, a child of the 60s, and have seen a lot of civil rights added and now retracted at this point. I laugh because it's gallows humor, because I laugh to keep from crying at this moment. But the point about it is that telling the story, and many people wouldn't, you know, are not given the opportunity. So classes like yours allow us or me to sit and think about these my origins and things that have impacted my particular life. But as I had shared with the class as well as you folks, because there's always a plethora of questions.
Yes. Like,
have you looked for your birth mother? How do you feel about this? How do you do this? And so folks got to remember a number of things. One is it's 1955. It's segregated America. No matter whether, as I always say here, if you're below the Mason-Dixon line, it's down south, and if you're above it, it's above south. And although this is happening in Brooklyn, it's segregated America, because 1 year before that, 1955, it's Brown versus Board of Education.
Yes.
Okay, so that is a seminal landmark decision. But I say this to say this here about my birth mother, because that is what I was talking about. And I said here that when you look at Black women's lives in 1955, there are not many options. And this was before Roe v. Wade, which was 1973. We didn't have, women didn't have reproductive justice. But it's now 2025, and we don't again. But the irony of all of that. But I say that to say here that if this was a woman who grew up in the projects, because Fort Greene, I was abandoned in Fort Greene Park, that if this was a woman that had family in the projects, well, you can't live in the projects, have a child for 6 months, because Black folks.
Not with Black folks.
That's right, because they call you, where that baby?
Right.
Okay, where that baby?
Right.
Okay? And
exactly like that.
That's really. And if this was a woman, a Black woman of some means, you know, and of a upper class Black woman, well, they would have sent her down south. Maybe an aunt, somebody else would have raised her. But this clearly says, this is a woman that didn't have what we call that village. But that village could also be this. My birth father could be my father, okay, which would be my grandfather. You know, could be my uncle. Okay, my father could be my uncle. My father could be my grandfather. But also, we got to look at that reality.
Yes.
I mean that, you know, Alice Walker brings that to the fore in The Color Purple.
Absolutely.
So I think that when you travel and understand women's lives, then you add Black women's lives, then you say, well, you know what? I had no choice in how she abandoned me, but she couldn't take care of me because she couldn't take care of herself. But I do notice that that has a lot to do more with gender, because I do know that men that I talk about who mothers abandon them or however are angry with their mothers. And I feel like, well, and I always, because they ask me, how do you deal with it? I says, because you don't know what it's like to travel in a woman's body, okay, through time. And then a Black woman's body. And then the violence that is always, it's, you know.
Perpetuated.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. You were found in this park at 6 months old.
That's right.
You said July 11th, right?
That's right.
So
that's a rebirth. We're a few days from it because this is the 9th.
Yeah, today's the 9th.
That's right. And I always celebrate that day because my government assigned birthday is January 11th.
Wow.
But I was actually found on July 11th. And so I always see that as a rebirth. This is that moment of where erasure could have taken place, death could have taken place. This is that moment where this child, meaning me, is now documented and is acknowledged to be in the world. And now, so, I always say this, that God's gift to me, is my life. And what I do with my life is my gift back to God.
That's so powerful. Also, the 11 of it all, the very vibrational numbers, 1. You named last night that they found you in a park, but it was 3.
That's right.
Sanitary workers.
That's right. Right. They happened to be cleaning the park, Fort Greene Park, that side of the park, on that day. And the very wonderful thing, I had shared with the class that on Oprah, she found them. She found those garbage men. And the wife of one of the garbage men, and let me just share a little bit about the garbage man.
Yes, please.
Here and stuff. The wife said the husband would come home every day from work, open up the refrigerator, take a can of beer, shoo the kids away from him and sit in his chair. That's how he ended his day. He said, but he was a changed man that day when he came home. He said that and what was so wonderful, she said, through the years, and that's many years by the time I get connected with Oprah.
And how old were you?
I'm in my 30s now.
Wow.
At that point. And because because it's also in the magazine. I was also interviewed for the magazine. And the wife said he was a changed man. She said through the years they had always asked and wondered in their conversation, I wondered what happened to that baby. And she said she was so glad to be here this day to see what happened.
Wow. And when she said he was a changed man, like, in what way?
More embracing the kids, coming home with a whole different attitude.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're finding you allowed him to basically appreciate what he has at home.
His children. His children, right. He would shoo them. He'd shoo everybody away. Yeah.
To be 30 years old or in your 30s and now meeting the men who found you, what was that experience like?
To say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, and I think that I live in a space of gratitude every day here and stuff. You don't come from my beginnings and have some of the opportunities that I've had in life. And a lot of that has to do with the village, has to do with the Black church, the role that libraries that are now, books being banned, the church, the Black church is that village, okay? The centrality of it, certainly, in the 1960s in particular, because it functioned as a multiple site here. I mean, it helped catapult the civil rights movement here and stuff. I always tell people when they would ask me, they says, how come all the Black folks knew the songs? I said, oh, those were our church hymns that wherever there was Jesus, we just said freedom, and we put freedom in there. And they both are synonymous in so many ways here and stuff. But I think that, people would like to say, oh, you pulled yourself up from your bootstraps. Not at all. First of all, I had none, and that is a myth here. Were it not for the people seen and unseen. So what do I mean by unseen? Unseen is donating to the Fresh Air Fund, sending me to camp up here in New Hampshire. Unseen is legislation that is passed. Board of Education, desegregating the schools. That's number one. The Voting Rights Act, all of that, giving people, enfranchising people, giving them agency. It's the goodness of people coupled with rights that are being fought. So I need to say that. People like to say, because I tell folks, yeah, I was very lucky. I went, I've attended Wellesley, Columbia, Union Theological Seminary, and Harvard, and I clap on that sometimes, but I need to say this here. Okay, not to denigrate education, because I'm all about that, but I always tell people, I got the best education, okay, wait a minute, that you can have in this country if you're molding Afro-Saxons, because I got the education that teaches you so much away from yourself. It really does. I think about Carter Woodson when he talks about the miseducation of the Negro. Education is essential, but the pedagogy that they have in these schools. And I went to Wellesley, and I'm not poo-pooing Wellesley, but because they say women who will make it in the world. But you need to understand this, that by the time someone like me who's a street kid, I'm gonna make it no matter what, okay? And Wellesley is not gonna do it. And getting credentials from Harvard is not gonna make me. So I need to say that, but I'm not poo-pooing that, but I feel very lucky. I mean, but it's not to ignore what Brown versus Education has done to open those doors to let me in, and I think me being so close to my community, and in my ministry, as well as just always being part of what goes on in Brooklyn, in my part of Brooklyn, I can never forget where I come from here and stuff. So I would never be one of these high sedidity.
Okay, I know that's right.
But I need to say this too, because I know folks like to say, "Oh, I'm surprised," because I'm so much a street sister. A street sister here. And I like to disabuse folks that you can be educated. And, we use this name Shaniqua as to mean that round the way girl. But the hubris to assume that Shaniqua can't make it to Wellesley, Columbia, and Harvard if given a chance.
Right.
And to assume that affirmative action, or not affirmative action is that you giving me something. That's number one.
Which also got taken away as well.
Okay, that's right. And to assume that intelligence is only predicated on white upper class folks. So I mean, so yes, I'm that sister around. I'm that round the way girl. I'm Sister Shaniqua. Okay, and as I say, better recognize.
There's so many intersectionalities of who you are, and I'm just listening to the paradigms of all of that, right? So like growing up in Brooklyn, not knowing where your origin story lies from, being indoctrinated and also embraced into this culture with being raised by nuns, and then also you named that you've been in different foster homes growing up as well, to then saying, hey, I'm coming out and I'm a whole lesbian, like sis, and educated at that, and an around the way girl. That is a lot of intersectionalities of identities to hold and carry. What I think for me, my first question is, for you to grow up, what is family? How do you define family to you?
Okay, that, and so this is the gift that as queer people, LGBTQ, it expanded the parameter of what family can be. See, because we used to say it is just kin folks, blood is thicker than water. And in some instances in those families it is. But the gift that we give as LGBTQ folks is that we can choose our family.
Absolutely.
And we can put people in our family that will hold us up, so, and also correct us.
Absolutely.
Okay? And it can be heard with love and radical love here. So I think it's so interesting because more people are adopting what I call that queer model of family. People who have family are appropriating that queer model of this constellation of people work best for me and help me be my authentic self.
Have you ever tried to look for anybody from your birth mother's side? I'm assuming there wasn't much to
go
off
when
of.
you don't have a paper trail, okay, you don't have much to claim or to go with, because, I have access to Henry Louis Gates, Professor Gates, and stuff like that. But I need to say this, though, here, and of course I've been in therapy, but I need to say this here. One of the things that I have learned is that with everybody, you have to carve out your own life, okay, your own path. You really do.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it more with more privileged kids, going to these privileged schools who would say things like, a good example, my parents have been doctors and they're on that pre-med track, and then at some point something happens and they are not able to bring that to fruition, feeling like they need to commit suicide, or they didn't get a grade that they want. And then that's when you realize that a sense of who they are is not evolved as well. I might have had to expedite that, being alone. But I need to say, though, people who have helped me build an identity of from nobody to somebody. And I need to talk about the civil rights movement, how that really has, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
So, here I am. I'm certainly part of the Black church. Very much a child of the Black church. I always say I was since I couldn't sing, I was on, how Black churches, they call you out, okay? They call you out.
Listen.
Okay, so they say, child, you cannot sing.
You can't hit that note,
okay?
sis.
But you can speak, okay?
Yes.
So you speak, okay? You do the announcements. You can be on, you can be on the junior usher board, but child, do not come near my choir, okay? So, but any event, I just want to take you to some seminal moments, if you don't mind, that really shaped me.
Yes, absolutely.
And really shaped my activism and stuff. So 1963 is the March on Washington. And it was the whole debate among all these churches went down there. Brooklyn churches just went, we went in buses, in busloads of us. The whole question was, do we take the children out down there? It was the whole argument, what happens if something erupts? And it was the whole thing about, well, the Children's Crusade is part of the civil rights movement. And it's the whole, I think, thing, the whole sort of verse in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he or she should be, grow, and then when they get older, they won't depart from it. So I use that, I think about that. It's like, no, I haven't departed too much from that, And so here I am down at this, the March on Washington. I'm 8 years old. I don't really understand the gravitas. I really don't.
Right.
I mean, I understand that there's this important man named Martin Luther King. I'm on the children's bus. We're singing children's songs. We're, just having a good time. Not really understanding. I'm there in the moment. I remember it just being hot that day. Long walk to the bus. I mean, remember, all of that kind of stuff. A number of us talking, me talking, and, one of the ushers saying, hush, child, because King is talking. But it really resonated a month later. And you want to know why? Because I'll never forget this, September 15th, the 12th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama was bombed. And 4 little girls were down in the basement of the church. Now, I could relate to that. Okay, and that's when I got like, oh, wow. Because you could put yourself in the basement of the church.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so is that what he's fighting about? To save my life. That's how a kid would think about it. To save, oh, my life. Oh, and then, so that's 1963. Now, I know that Kennedy died, but it didn't register to me in my community and stuff, because there were folks who really didn't like the Kennedys. I'm sorry, because I know you're from Massachusetts and y'all love the Kennedys, okay? I'm not poo-pooing them. I'm just saying how they felt in my community.
Listen, right? I don't take no disrespect to that.
Yeah, but then I do remember this, 1965, I'm 10 years old, but we used to go up to Harlem for a lot of stuff. The Harlem Fest, I mean that, Questlove filmed that, which was all off the chart, that moment here. But you would see Malcolm. And it was UCLA, we call it. People would say, are you going up to UCLA? And that means University on the corner of Lenox Avenue. And so you know these people, okay? So he's killed. But then, I'm a little older now, 68. Okay, King is killed. Oh, you cannot not know that moment. Remember that moment. That's April of 1968, and then September of that year, my Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm is the first Black woman to be part of the United States Congress. So these are factors that, you know what I'm saying, that impact you, you know. And then 72, she runs for president, and I say to her, can you do that? I mean, you know, and so I look at Shirley Chisholm, and I need to talk about the church. The church is a place where you can be somebody. See, you know, it's what King says in his, doesn't matter what your lot in life is. You could be a street sweeper, you know, but you can go into the church. You're deacon somebody, your sister somebody. You know, you ask that question in class, when are you seen? You're seen in the Black church, okay? We see you, you know, and Jesse Jackson had this wonderful, you know, sort of rhetorical statement. You know, I may not be somebody, but no, I am somebody. I am somebody. I may come from this place, but I am somebody. So I come from a legacy of folks who embrace, I might not be anybody. I may not come from this particular, you know, station in life, but I can be somebody. And that really resonates. And then to see someone like Shirley Chisholm, and I just need to say this, we called her Miss C, okay? And I need to tell you who was my playmate, classmate. We graduated from Tilden High School together. We now call him Al Sharpton, but we used to call him Fat Alfred.
That's crazy.
We grew up in the projects. Yes, absolutely. Yes, indeed. We are from Tilden High School, and I'll get back to that. But I need to say this. He was a cute, chubsy-wubsy Pentecostal minister back in the day. He used to go to Washington Temple. We knew where everybody went to church, you know, because he was like, what church you go to, right? He was a cute, chubsy-wubsy, okay? Okay. And we'd come on the playground, we'd be hitting them, go away, go away, go away. But let me get back to this here. But Shirley Chisholm, again, this is a woman of Bayesian, Brooklyn born, but of Bayesian descent, dark skinned like I am. I swear to you, she was no more than, we called her Miss C, she was no more than like 5'2", you know, and spoke with a lisp, okay? And had a kind of resolve and demeanor, and comported in such a way. I was like, wow. So these are your everyday people who affect change in your life.
First of all, you are talking about the revolutionaries of our time, people who have changed history.
That's right, yeah.
This is what you have been bred into.
Yeah, you know, and I feel very lucky. So there you have all of this, and so that's 1972, 73, believe it or not, Roe v. Wade, but that's gone now, you know, 73. And now I look at this, here we are at 2025, and that's gone. But I need to say this, but I forgot, there's 1969, just one last point, but I feel like when you're as old as I am, you can, you know, while your memory is still working.
You're very young in spirit, sis.
You know, so here's 1969, I'll never forget this. This is June. Okay, last day of school in Brooklyn public school system here. I'll never forget it. And living in the projects, we didn't have AC. And you stay out late at night. You can. There's no more school. Thank God, there's no more school. You know, you'd always hear the boys, some of the boys would play their Congo drums out on the benches and stuff, and that bring us music. You know, that's the way we just kind of re-rolled and stuff, and kids are out playing, even though it's dark and stuff. We get this news here. Now, you got to realize it's the red hot summer. It's 1969. King has already died. The Black Panthers are revving up. We got this Black Power movement. At that time, I have a little afro. Cute little afro. And we get this news here that the cops now, and we call them the pigs back then, are beating up on our black, and they call it F word back then, our black faggots back then. That's the word they use here. Now, we've had tensions with the cops anyway. We still have it today. See, so notice how things don't change.
I'm seeing this.
We get this news. So we're going to go down, we're going to go wherever it is. Like, because we realized that one of the key singers, the soloists of our church, Bertie, is down in this place called Greenwich Village. Now, we can't figure out why Bertie and his guys and his friends would go to Greenwich, Connecticut to hang out with rich white people. We couldn't figure that out because we didn't know that there was such a place called Greenwich Village in New York City.
Wow.
But we go down there, and I just want to talk about this, just why your class is important and why I understand erasure, okay, with no documentation, and how who controls the narrative, okay, controls the story and stuff, and why that propels me to write incessantly and stuff. But here it is, we go down there, and we find Bertie, thank God, and find a few other folks and stuff. But we take the train down there, okay? Now that we know where where Greenwich Village is.
Right.
So when you tell the story of the Stonewall riots, okay, it bleaches out the black folks that are down there, because it's a working class bar, number one. It was a dink of a bar. Okay, a lot of homeless kids were down there. You know, we used to call them drag queens. They were down there. And the interesting thing is telling the story after. So I was shocked to find out that the newspaper didn't capture it well. Anyway, just didn't capture it because about a caption about this big way back in the New York Times. But that wasn't a primary paper for black folks. It was the Amsterdam News. That's why one of the reasons why I felt it was important to write in these LGBTQ papers, because that's the audience that I'm trying to reach. Because we're never going to make here the Boston. Now we do, but the Boston Globe, you know, the New York Times, all the major papers here and stuff. Well, the thing about that is that I try to explain to people, because they say, well, we don't see any black people in the photos. Well, of course not, for a couple of reasons. What black person then and now would have the privilege to say, oh, we're going to go down to the village and line up in front of the face of the police and fight the police? Now, first of all, most of our riots were in our neighborhoods. That's number one. So we went down there and got folks and got back on that train and went back home.
Wow.
Okay, because that's what you do. That's number one. But the whole idea of not understanding that, yes, we were down there that first night, but we're not recorded to be down there. Oh, hordes of us. Hordes of us. It wasn't just folks coming from Bed-Stuy, Brownsville. Hordes of black folks went down there. And some because we were getting folks, some because cops were beating up on black folks.
Right.
You know, and so that was why I would always tell the story about Stonewall. Now, I'm 14 at that time, but I always say that we have to pick up those stories, which I'm so delighted to be in front of you here and to your audience, because if we don't tell our stories, nobody will. As I say, our lives are sacred texts, but they're not taken as sacred texts, and so they don't get the social history of it. That gives the full and robust picture of it. Now they do. They will say, yes, Marsha P. was down there. That's right. Okay. Sylvia was down there. Of course. But you see, now you romanticize her like we do King.
Right.
We love them now because they're all gone. Okay.
Right.
So we can stick a new narrative. So I'm just very glad to get back to being in front of you, a younger generation that has the means. And Amir Dixon, I remember, listen, I call him my child. I remember this child coming to me, asking me, should he do this? Like, yeah, because it's not something that my generation could do. But I'm so happy that you, Amir, Craig, all of y'all stand on our shoulders. We took the ball down the road as far as we could, but baby, y'all are running a sprint. Thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging that. I feel very emotional. I feel like I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, and
I am gonna cry.
Yeah, yeah.
Your story is so powerful, but thank you for saying that, because I think that parts of the reasons why we wanted to do Narratives in Black is to tell these stories, because one, we want to hear them, right? We want to know, like Trey Andre Valentine always says, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors while also standing on our graves. And that, ever since I heard him say that phrase, it has resonated with me with everything that I do. And I know it resonates with Amir as well. So for you to say something like that, I feel like, you know, parts of it, I think why I'm emoting is because I feel like our 80s generation, like the 80s babies, are now doing a great service to the younger generation, but I feel like there was such a gap of between revolting and also staying in place.
Right.
And we were told to be educated because we could be. We were told to work really hard because we needed to own homes and create families, right? And even just listening to you talk, there's so many things that are like just flashing in my mind as you're speaking, like, whereas you come from a generation of revolutionaries, what does that feel like to be bred into that? Obviously, you not only can you make something of your life, but you must.
Yeah.
That it almost is like you're obligated to do something and make something of your life so that other folks can get it and understand it and then make something of theirs. But then there's also this sense of responsibility as well, to be 14 years old and witness Stonewall.
Yeah.
At 14, to now sitting right next to you and seeing all of the work that our ancestors have died to make waves and watching it being rolled back. It's hard not to be, it's hard not to be emotional. Like, you're talking about erasure, and that's exactly what we're witnessing now. And I think in this moment, it makes me feel compelled on what can we do and what should we be doing right now. I'm always going to political, you know, telling the babies our vote matters. We need to get out here in these streets. We need to be at the mayoral elections. We need to be at the governor elections. We need to be voting for local and state officials. These are the people. You know, they always say we don't have any power, but that is not true when I'm sitting here listening to what you are saying right now as far as the marches, the civil rights movement, you know, Brown versus Board of Education. Like, these all afforded us as Black folk to even go to school, to even live as free as we want to be. And on top of that, we're men and we're women, right? Now we're able to choose whether or not we want to be non-binary, they, them, theirs, right? But then also to be educated.
That's right.
To then be also queer, trans. Like, there are so many intersectionalities of being Black in America. And I just want to say thank you for just like reminding us of like the fight that still needs to continue, but also fighting the fight for us to even get to this moment where we can fight.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that.
Oh my gosh.
I really,
Ma'am.
I really thank you. I really thank you for that. And I want to say just a few more things again, I'm just honored to be here to share my story, because I feel like you won't. One of the things I know about you and Amir and just the ethos of this whole project, you won't pimp my story. You know what I mean? You won't misappropriate my story. And why I say this is because what happens in the dominant culture, white culture here, they say, oh, okay, Reverend Irene Monroe, let's get that one. You know what I mean? And in doing that, ignoring, I come with a village. Okay?
Tokenization.
That's right. That's right. But I always say this: if you're going to be a token, take it for a good ride monetarily. Okay, I get something out of it. But the point is this here, though. But I'm of that sort of premise. You must lift as you climb, because the struggle is always ongoing. So I'm glad where you are. I'm of this generation that I couldn't imagine this. This just wasn't possible. Just wasn't. But the birthing of you, birthing of Amir, all of you, as I saw all my babies after, it is just wonderful. And what needs to be done is, see, so the village looks very different. The religious landscape has changed. Folks don't go to church, and for good reasons. And for good reason. Listen.
Folks ain't even having big families no more.
That's right. Absolutely. That's exactly right. But the point is that one of the things you asked me is that, what do I think of family? How do I create family? And I feel like what we have lost is that whole notion that we're a village, and a village of multiple types of families with different types of issues here and stuff. You can't get people to come vote to the ballot if they're not being represented, if their issues are not being represented. So we got to really put money and time and energy. See, the reason why Shirley Chisholm got all the folks from the projects, folks that had never voted, came out and voted for Shirley Chisholm for the same reason that folks that had never voted for Barack Obama. Okay? Because
talk about it.
Okay? Representation.
Yes.
Okay? It gives you hope even if all of what you hope for with that candidate does not come to fruition here. And
we have to understand that this candidate has 4 years. If at best maybe 8.
That's right. That's right.
It's so much to undo and address. If we think about that, it's a short period of time.
Right.
To undo what has came before you for years and years, it's almost asking of someone to do the impossible. If you have 100 issues, you're lucky if you can get a solution and actually change 25 of those.
That's right.
It takes time.
That's right.
Just like it took time for us to get to this space, it's going to take time for us to undo the space that we're in.
That's right.